probably had a good step on it.
Hey, this is Tyler with TJack Survival and Survival Dispatch, and I'm at Rabbit Stick this week, so stay tuned.
So, unstringing, were you doing the step 3?
It sucks,
Probably had a...
What I can find right out of my yard, and that's the plants that are growing in my yard. We also have them growing right back there. So we could take fresh materials if you want. You can actually use fresh dog bane as a wrap. You'll see how nice that is. We're going to take some reed grass, some dog bane, some greasewood, some buffalo sinew, and some wits and dexterity, and we're going to copy an arrow style that was used by most of the desert cultures that became what's now known as the Paiutes, the Utes, some of the Western Shoshones, but groups all the way down into Mexico. So lots of tribal peoples all over that had river cane or cane grass or bamboo or reed grass or carrizo cane. They all figured out how to use that as the shaft part of their arrow, and then take a hardwood and make a foreshaft that was hard and durable so it would stick in a big animal or a little animal. We're going to make small game fletchless arrows that I learned from Larry Olson, who learned from the Paiutes. So this is kind of a desert Paiute culture thing, Great Basin Paiute style arrow. Fletchless river cane or river grass arrows. Thank you very much. But I have a bundle of the real stuff from around here, meaning the plant that the people that were here used. And then I have some cousins of it that are from, that came up into Arizona out of Mexico, but they were introduced by the Spaniards 500 years ago. So I have some little bit tougher thing called carrizo, and then this is regular local reed grass off of Provo Lake. And then this is also a mix of that carrizo cane. And if you just want to try straightening the stick, and and the class is already over, or if people show up late, they can try straightening willows and other stuff and rosehip shafts just for the practice. But mixed in here are foreshaft materials that we are going to use. So we've got 2 straightening jobs. And I would make your arrow first, and then straighten your foreshaft. The arrow's the hardest part. If you've already straightened sticks before, well, then you kind of know the beginning process. We're going to use fat. And so what I'd like you to do, because my examples are gone, is get a fire going over there, and then start getting those briquettes hot if you want pinpoint heat. And start picking through some shafts and pass them out and just start practicing. And if you've never done a lot of this on this material, practice on broken pieces first. But what you're going to need is a shaft at least this long. And then you want to put your foreshaft in a piece of cane that's at least a little longer than that, but that would work. This end's long enough, but it's in reverse. I think the arrows fly better when they taper from fat to skinny in the back, just like a javelin. So if you have a skinny tip, it gets fat, and the center of weight spot in the middle, and then it tapers back that way, they just fly. And that shape that javelins have is specific and have a reason. So think of putting your foreshaft in the fat end, so I can still get a good arrow for hunting by trimming that part right there. But I wouldn't trim anything till I got the whole thing straight. So these are the primos that I set aside. So I wouldn't even suggest straightening one of these first. I brought a lot of failures on purpose, meaning that if you break them, I won't feel super bad. But I would practice on stuff. Let's say that my arrow needs to be at least that long. Well, this is crummy. This is broken here and got a pack rat hole there. I would practice straightening joints. And then after all the joints are meaning that you straighten it at the joint, and then the next thing you got to do is straighten it at the center band. Sorry for poking you. So see how there's kind of a banana shape there? You look down it and they're all... Go straighten all the joints in line as best you can, and then go back and straighten the banana bends, which is one right there that's in the middle of that one. And you want to heat up the outside bend. So can everybody see that piece right there? And how this side is bent on the outside curve, and then there's a little bit of inside curve there. So if I heat that right there and hold it over and I rub fat on it and get the whole thing hot and go like this, it'll kink, not kink, but it'll bend right there on the outside. And I hold it, and pretty soon that tube will be perfectly straight. So we're not trying to get each tube straight to the next tube. We first want to get each joint straight. So we're going to have a series of bent pieces between each joint, but the joints all line up when you look down it. And then we're going to start bending all of the banana curves out, and that'll make all the joints out of line again. So then you go back to those already heated joints, and you do that again, and you go back and forth till you've got a shaft that's straight enough. And then you got to figure out how to straighten up the foreshaft enough that when it goes in, it doesn't curve off either. It's a straight line all the way down. And when you can spin it in your hand, and it all has, I don't know if you've seen Aboriginal atlatl spears or darts, but they're snaky. But when you look down them, they corkscrew all in an exact straight line. So whatever the parts are doing, all the parts line up to be something that flies where they throw it. So you won't have a perfectly straight arrow. But in science, they say even a ball bearing, if you looked at it and have what they call low tolerance or high tolerance, which is it? If you have high tolerance, it means it's sloppy. If you have low tolerance, it means it's not sloppy. Is that correct?
Opposite of that.
Is it the opposite? So high tolerance means what? The high level of
precision.
Precision. Okay. So if you have a high tolerance ball bearing, and you look at it and you're the size of a human on planet Earth, it will have canyons and mountains just like planet Earth does. But if you get off the Earth and look at it, they say it looks like a smooth ball bearing. It's like a marble. It's like it has a glass surface from up out in space. So are you going to get a straight arrow today? No. Are we making straight arrows? No. We're bending sticks that are crooked so they look less crooked when we're finished. We're not straightening them. We're bending them into a usable line. When they're really crooked, this point we're going to watch it dip. Boom, that's way out. See that how it dips and goes down? So this one I didn't straighten all the way, so it would do that. See how it does that? If you spin it, the tip's going to stay in a pretty small circle. So look how that tip isn't staying in a small circle. It's getting big, right? It's about the size of a nickel. This one's worse. So here's two I didn't straighten out about a half an hour ago. And here's those two, I've put them back to how good they were when I was planning on this class. So here's two examples of close, and these are kind of finished enough to shoot. And if you want to just borrow a little kid's bow, we can shoot it across the river, no problems. If you get a pretty powerful bow that gets up to about 30 pounds, we can make it disappear in those trees over there.
Do you want me to get one?
No, because the home point would be to like shoot something that's about from here to her or from here to that bag. So you're sitting perfectly still, and your friend goes whistling across a flat, and you stop behind a rock and he keeps whistling, and the rock chucks all come out to look in the direction of the person whistling, and they get an arrow in the back of their head.
What is a rock chuck exactly? Is it like a woodchuck?
It's like a marmot. Yeah,
it's like a ground squirrel, only really big.
Really big, fat, greasy piece of food. They almost look like a small badger when they're really, really healthy.
So this is one of the...
So that's one of the crooked ones.
War arrows, though.
Yeah, that'd be a modern war arrow, and it would have eagle fletching on it.
Yeah.
And then if I was going to go take something like this and switch it out to a more stable hunting point, that would be for shooting deer.
Okay, I see.
Right.
Yeah.
But they're mostly small game arrows, and so my friends that shoot their deer with stuff like this, that are Paiutes, they don't shoot up close, but they don't shoot far away. We're talking 20 to 15 yards, and they're stalking and hiding, and then they don't have any smell left on them sometimes because they've not slept with their wives for 4 days. They've not eaten for 4 days. They went into the sweat lodge the night before, and then they covered themselves in squaw bush or sumac bush, like smell. So they smell like the bushes, and they don't have that human smell. And so they're not trying to stalk something so much as kill something they've already been observing by hiding and waiting for it to go by.
Okay. So from what you said, their bows then, even the ones that they used for warfare, were lighter.
Some of them had, but they had thicker walled cane too.
Okay.
So I'm just saying, I've seen a Navajo Apache war arrows out of the same material, but that was 100-something years ago, 200 years ago, and so things have been diminishing in health all over the planet. And one of the things that took the hit is this reedgrass is getting thinner walled. So out of thousands and thousands of reedgrass examples, you can find 2 or 3 that make good arrows. So these aren't examples of the normal stuff. This took a lot of looking through patches. Where when I was a kid, these would still not pass the test because they're not that good, but they're better than anything else now. So that's data. I don't know what the interpretation of that data is, other than things are getting weaker because they're not getting the same nutrients, or they're not being burnt off anymore. Because the Paiutes used to burn them all off every winter.
We've forgotten how to cultivate them.
And so they're not being raised. And people were raising arrow shafts, and they're not anymore. So I think the plant community is responding to our lack of interest. Just like I would. If that's not too much information, these resources are available. This is a finished product of what they would look like. You'd get this super hot in the fire, pull it out and set it on a log or a rock. You grease up your shaft, and then you just run it in that groove until that whole area is super hot. Super, super hot. So those things, they didn't know what to do with them for years, and now we know exactly what they were. They were a pinpoint heat source. So heat that up in there. Because of the rock it's made out of, it won't thermal shock. Put it back out on the ground, get grease on your arrow and run it in there, and that'll bend. It'll get all that heat right into the spot you're doing that in. If you're looking for a joint, this joint right here is not any good anymore. See how the rain made it go back to how kind of right there? That's the bad spot right there. Rub that joint with grease, about that much. And if I had pinpoint heat ready, I would just put it right over that. If I didn't, and this was already hot, I would just, run it back and forth in there real slow. You don't want to burn it. And when that whole thing's sizzling hot, and then you bend it from out here and you pull this way and this way. And you just kind of bend and pull and hold it. And then it'll cool off and then it'll stay where you put it. But I'm going to take that bend out now, and that grease is really warmed up, see that? And then I'm just going to go like that and hold it. But I'm supporting the back of it, and I'm actually pulling that direction on both of these. And if I don't feel a little bit of give, I'm not hot enough yet. So I just got to go back at it. Because I've already made this arrow and wrapped that joint for strength so that the impact force won't split out my tube, it's going to take longer to get to that joint because it's covered in dogbane fibers. It's farther to the middle.
So what did you cover that dogbane with? Pitch?
I just used hide glue, but I don't have any. So we're going to use pine pitch. And if somebody doesn't care, somebody can go find some Elmer's or whatever. It's just glue. We're just doing this. See how that's actually getting more bent as it gets hot? That's why you don't want to use big fire sometimes, because what you'll get is everything will bend back to how it used to be before you made your arrow. So pinpoint heat doesn't allow everything to lose its memory or gain its memory. You want it to forget what it used to be like and go to where you put it. When you heat it up again, it'll just go back to the crooked shaft it was when it was a piece of reed grass. If you don't care about your pants, sometimes you can use your knee as the fulcrum. But everything breaks eventually if you keep doing this. Even steel starts getting those cracks where it keeps bending. The shocks eventually break out. So this isn't the best way. It's more crooked now than when I started the demo of how to straighten it, because it went back to how it was before I made the arrow. So the best way to go is to try to get a pinpoint heat either by a candle or something. And they didn't have candles at the beginning when they started doing this, but at the end they did.
Is it a coal?
Yep.
It's got some bear fat on it.
Yeah. It's got what?
Bear fat? Or what kind of fat did you put on?
I didn't put any fat on.
No.
Did he have some fat put on?
I think he did.
There's a bag over
3
there.
kinds of fat.
Right here.
That was like thump. It ripped right through it.
And I don't think I got I didn't think I got quite even 10 inches draw there. So I'm just pinching with my thumb. So it's for rabbits.
Hey.
For small game. And if I wanted to lose it, I could get it probably in, if it wasn't a windy day, I could get it in that cottonwood tree over there. Because once they start going high, they just glide. So but they're not for long distance shooting. They're for just plugging small game.
Well, I love my story.
Yeah. I could just give it away to the universe. And I didn't, what was that, about a 10-inch draw?
Landed it in Europe. Shot some
I'm
hippie
pretty
in the
sure
river.
if there's somebody over there, then I just broke all the rules of archery. That, if you don't hear any more shots, that was an effective quieting tool.
Someone dragging a cow out on a
Yeah.
hitch of their tractor.
Thank you.
That was a nice bill.
But did you see that without fletching, because of its lightweightness, it didn't really do any of that? It just, so the
That's
point
pretty.
started tilting, it's because the wind was pushing the butt end around. So it's a really nice system.
It's Defiance. It's its name.
Thanks, Tony.
You're welcome. Thank you.
That's, I mean, I can find quite a few of those.
But these are all weak
Yeah.
compared to how they used to be when I was a kid. Like 28 inches long, I think. You can still go big game hunting as long as you got a good strong shaft. That's actually, that point would be too big. They didn't need one. I talked to Paiutes nowadays that want to go hunting traditional style. They say that's about twice as big as that.
Is that your second tri-stick?
Yeah, this one's a lot less rotten, and I felt like that was why. I felt like I didn't have too much pressure, but it kept giving.
When they're popping out, where are they popping out and why?
So most of the time, it's either gonna pop out right here. a lot of mine were doing it because it was too rotten, or if you put too much pressure. But usually, most of the time what happens is like if you get a pop can, and you have the side of the pop can, right, and you press on it and it buckles like that, that's what's going to happen most of the time, and it'll happen on either side of that node if you're working on it. So.
Cool. So the early Mormon pioneers said that their cows would come home in the evening looking like pin cushions because the little kids would, Paiute kids would practice on them. Oh my God.
The big monster.
So they weren't intended to kill them, they were just trying to see if they can hit the cow from a long ways out. So it doesn't go in very far, it's sticking about that far.
Yeah. Well, that's a lot bigger hide than a rabbit.
Right. This is a piece of cane grass or reed grass. This is some greasewood. These are both, you know, Great Basin plants. And we have some dog bane fibers and some dog bane plants growing in the back over here. We're going to take those things and a little bit of bear fat or sheep grease and straighten the reed grass and the greasewood shafts, foreshaft, and make something that's a combination arrow, hard where it's going to get stick on the animal, and light and straight in the back, and aerodynamic, so that they don't need fletching. So you can shoot them, you know, a couple 100 yards if you want to watch them fly, or you can shoot them like 10 yards if you're killing something up close. But these are small game arrows that the people that were lived here before, after the Anasazi, and before the Mormons. Not that said, we still find Anasazi or Pueblo and era arrows made real similar to this. So even the Paiutes didn't necessarily come up with it. It was around before they immigrated into this area.